Final Stop Brazil, Book 2, Life After Hell, Chapter 25, New Confrontation with the Consulate. On the first Sunday of October, Josima actually did visit me, greeted me effusively like an old friend, brought a lot of food and food prepared by Fatima. We sat outside in the courtyard to discuss in peace how we would go about the marriage at best. Together with him, I filled out the application for the certificate of no impediment. Both of us noticed what stupid questions we had to answer, such as the date of the marriage of his parents. No wonder that the German authorities were too busy. Although Josima was very friendly, I didn't feel quite comfortable in my skin. Not only because he was not completely my type. He really didn't need to be. He simply talked too much, especially about money, and I didn't like it. When I asked him how much the trip cost from Peruíba, his residence, up to this place, he replied that he needed to be traveling about 7 hours, going and coming, and paid 50 reais. Since he had already arrived for the second time, the first time he had to come to get the permission for the visit. For Brazilians, the visitors could pick up the visitor's permit on the same first visit Sunday. Since I was a foreigner, Josima had to report a week before and undergo an interview where he knew me from. I would have to pay 100 reais. The documents we needed for the certificate of impediment, he told me, were all in Minas Gerais, his birthplace, at the registry office. There he would have to travel to get them. I asked him why this could not be done by family members, but he replied that he had to go personally, and he was planning to do so about Christmas time, so he could spend at the same time the holidays with his family. On my expense? He seemed to be pleased with himself in the role of the entertainer. For me, the whole thing was very exhausting. I didn't think much of it, either, when he suggested I could invest my money in any business. Somehow I was happy when the visiting hours ended. I was very grateful for all the things he had brought. I had for about a week to eat. His plan was to visit me now every 2 weeks. So I should pay every 2 weeks 50 reais? And then this trip to Minas Gerais. I preferred not to ask how much that would cost. This way, the preparation for the wedding would cost so much that my money would not last a long time. After the visit time, many curious people came to my cell and wanted to know whether he was my namorado. Irritated, I replied, no, just a good friend. The year was now drawing to a close, but I was in high spirits again and hoping to spend at least Christmas in freedom. Still, I was very irritated. The last few weeks my patience was stretched rather in terms of my cellmates, who were every day worse to endure. Also, the consulate tugged on my nerves, and the marriage story, I somehow didn't like it anyway. I brought Michelle an apple to work. As always, she showed how much she was able to appreciate the smallest things. Oh, how long has it been since the last time I was eating an apple? With these words, she fell around my neck with gratitude. Us Brasileiras have to stick together, don't we? I replied mischievously. Deus pensou, she said to thank me. Michelle was, as most Brazilians, deeply religious. Half of the monthly kit I gave this time to Cleide, Sidi, and Dani, who invited me almost daily for coffee. All three didn't work yet, and were pleased with the things. Sidi had been chosen by me to receive my redirected mail. I could rely on it again, and got my letters sent on a regular basis, since they were no longer in my name and address. With his next visit, Mr. Waldman received of me the full charge. First I wanted to know from him which problem this Mr. Sturm had with me. Of course he was covering, and tried to keep out of it, but I showed him this malicious letter, which accidentally had fallen into my hands, written by Mr. Sturm, with these outrageous accusations about me. Mr. Waldman read the letter, shook his head in disbelief, but had no knowledge and no opinion. That's what he said. Next, I showed him the list of my Spanish bank account from July 2005 until the time of account closure to clean up with a lie that there was no money. 5,000 euros were in my account when I left Spain. Then I pointed out to him as well the great loss of money which I suffered because no one felt responsible for my business and my property in Spain, and could not even arrange to forward me the address of my bank or locate it. Because if I had it before, the account could have been blocked much earlier, and I could have had the money for my disposal now. Further, I alleged Mr. Waldman that other consulates were much more helpful in respect of marriage and stay in Brazil. With a little goodwill, this Mr. Sturm could certainly be helping me, I added. Unfortunately, this conversation was very one-sided, because Mr. Waldman couldn't say anything to any point. He only agreed to transfer my personal belongings, which were still with the consulate or Mr. Sturm, and himself to Julia. I wanted my stuff kept no longer with these people. Mr. Sturm would come in the following week to jail because I asked him in a furious letter for a last visit, as later I didn't want to take advantage of his valuable time anymore. My money should now be finally transferred to Wesley, minus 211 euro, which made me assume that the consul was followed by megalomania. 211 euros, more than 600 reais. I had received only once social assistance, the amount of 180 reais. Then my account balance on the German bank account had been revealed, what I had to use up first. This happened in January 2006. In March, I began to work, and thus the welfare was cancelled ever since. Gangster. I wrote to Julia to advise her that my remaining things would be brought to her, and went on about my doubts with Josima. Claudia had explained to me that Josima could very well have his relatives send his documents. She also pointed out to me that Peruibe was reached by metro and bus in 1 hour. Even I knew that this could not be travel costs of 25 reais. I remembered what I was told by Jefferson that time. There are also beaches in Sao Paulo, located about an hour away. Peruibe was at the beach. I was willing to help others, but would not let them use me. Between Claudia, Sidi, and Dani was some trouble brewing. Claudia and Sidi moved to another cell, so I stayed there. Less now. Trouble I had in my own cell enough, without needing it somewhere else. Go in and win. Mr. Sturm had come together with Mr. Waldman and a thick file. A letter from my mother they had brought also. Mr. Sturm was immediately offensive when I spoke to him about my money. I do not need to enrich myself with your money. Or do you want to say that I have cheated or robbed your money? He didn't consider at all my argument that my parents had sent twice 300 euro. I had used up my own 300 and received no more than 180 reais of social assistance. Do you have an idea how much costs had come up? Or did you think the jumbos were for free? In addition, travel expenses, etc. I was getting alerted now. Why travel costs, I wanted to know. They were not recorded, but I could have put them into account. So did he charge them or not? And why was he talking about it now if he didn't? Both waved before my nose with their accounts, but I did not get to see them. Only Mr. Waldman noted that he wanted to get his statements checked to avoid that I damage his reputation. Forget it. I have lost the last 2 years so much money, it doesn't make any more difference, I argued, and handed Mr. Sturm the completed application for the certificate of no impediment, and promptly had to realize again that this man would not lift a hand to help me. On the contrary. How am I supposed to know whether you are married in Spain or in Germany? I felt a great desire to strangle this pompous asshole. Then just leave it, if necessary. I remain illegal in Brazil, but I will not return to Germany. By the way, can I delete my German citizenship? I asked. In fact, this was possible, But as always, Mr. Sturm, who was so proud to be a German bandit, showed me just the disadvantages. And for any residence or toleration, he would be equally not responsible. I should go to the Policia Federal. Let us know when you go to Semiaberto so we don't come here in vain, remarked the stupid Sturm, ignoring my letters as always. You don't need to come any more at all, but I wrote this to you already, I answered him. Annoyed and irritated, I returned to work. To top it all, my radio began to play up stupid. But not enough. After work, I noticed that the stupid Tachi had taken off the shower curtain, however, wanted to wash it, only on Saturday. Excuse me, how am I supposed to take a shower here? The answer was a silly shrug. So I stood back in the queue for a shower once again. Due to renovation work, moved our company temporarily into the prison chapel. Well, then, we would be working in the church. Todo é possível. I was happy about it because here my radio received transcontinental without interference. I could listen all day long samba and didn't have to listen to the silly chatter. Wesley came every week and told me always the same. Another 1 to 2 months. I hardly believed it, but I also counted days and weeks because I couldn't stand it no longer here. My radio didn't give me joy any longer and soon gave up completely. That was the last thing I needed now. Samba was the only thing keeping me up and going. If I didn't even have this anymore, I would be going crazy. During the weekends, I was back to taking up to 7 tranquilizers a day, just to have peace and quiet. Long since, I wrote to Julia that I desperately needed a new radio, but nothing happened. So I called her. Julia, however, was very dodgy on the phone, but told me that she already had bought a new radio. The day after, I knew why she spoke very little. I got a message that I should stop calling her. Her phone was tapped. Nice shit.